I just made this entire video and realized the sound wasn't connected to the camera, so I'm gonna restart this. Hi everyone, this is Louisa. Welcome to A Better Understanding YouTube channel, where we talk about all things gender and sexuality. And today our topic is going to be about gender fluidity and gender identity in the media, so in movies, TVs, books, video games, you name it. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so I am not gender fluid or genderqueer of any variety, so I will express briefly my perspective of the media portraying it as an outsider and what I get from that, but the majority of my video will be about who in the media and where in the media can you find gender fluid characters that are fairly prominent. So I'm going to cover books, movies, video games, celebrities, TV shows, and just give you a little base of where can you start if you want to look for some of these gender fluid characters and start seeing how the media portrays gender fluidity. So the first one I think most people know about is Ruby Rose, who plays a gender fluid character on Orange is the New Black and has done a side video project prior to the role in Orange is the New Black about gender fluidity, and I'll post a link to that in the description. It's a really good video that shows a really good representation of the internal becoming external when you're talking about gender. There are a lot of other fairly famous celebrities who identify as genderqueer or non-binary. So whether it's super publicized or not, here's 3 or 4 of the other celebrities who you might have heard of who also identify as non-binary. So first of all, there's Miley Cyrus. Most people know of her. She has said she still prefers the pronouns she and her, but doesn't identify as strictly male or female characteristics. So Miley Cyrus, Steven Tyler, Gerard Way. He is the frontman, like the lead singer for My Chemical Romance, a band. And the last celebrity I'm going to mention is Tom Phelan. He is a genderqueer actor who plays a transgender trans man on the show The Fosters. And if you want a really good show that deals with LGBT and gender issues in a variety of settings, I highly suggest watching The Fosters. It deals with a huge variety of really good LGBT topics. I'm currently binge watching it. As of 2 weeks, it's taken a while. Okay, so I'm assuming there's a few other video game nerds out there who would be quite interested in finding out that there's quite a few famous video games that have genderqueer characters. And in video games, most of the time, they don't state that the character is genderqueer, so it's left as an ambiguous fact. They just don't tell you their gender. It's not made known to the player. So I'm going to butcher these names. I cannot pronounce video game character names unless I've heard them a million times. So I will attempt to pronounce and you can laugh at me. Okay, so first one. Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy video games. I'm playing through 8 right now, and I've played through 7, 12, 13, and 3. But apparently, Queeness, I don't know. See, I told you I'd butcher these. I can't say them. Is an ambiguous genderqueer character. We're never told a gender, and thus we assume genderqueer. Also, the video game Harvest Moon Magic Melody has a genderqueer character, Jamie, a very prominent character in the video game, and also left as an ambiguous person, ambiguous gender in the game. Oh, and the other video game I found that was fairly famous that has genderqueer characters is Transistor. I'm pretty sure it's a series, but I'm not sure. So Transistor. It includes gender markers, like in the character profiles. It will say like age, gender, type, etc. Their gender marker, genetic marker is basically your genetic codes, like XX, XY thing. So regardless of whether you're male or female, you have an X chromosome. Why am I saying X? Yeah. So the character Bailey Galland is considered genderqueer because in their character profile, it only has an X. It doesn't signify if it's XY, XX, etc. It's simply just an X. So it could be either. Their gender could be male or female, and it doesn't make it clear to us who it is. So that's about all I found for video games. So on to books is the last one I'm going to talk about, because I love books, and I think everyone should at least read one of these books, because they're all really good, and I've read all of them. My favorite one is the Culture series by Ian M. Bank. It is about a society, like a civilization, that is post-gender. So gender is not an issue. There's not really as much of a thing of gender in the civilization, and a lot of the characters do identify as genderqueer, whether it's stated or not. It's really, really good. I highly suggest reading it. It makes things very prominent in the fact gender is a very large part of the story. Another one I really liked, and it's just one book. Who writes this? Stone Butch Blues by Leslie Feinberg. And the last book I'm going to suggest is very different. It's not as much fiction. It's short stories by K.A. Cook. It's called Crooked Words. It's a collection of short stories, and a lot of them do feature characters who identify or are left ambiguous as genderqueer characters. And a lot of it involves societal, interpersonal kind of realizations of genders, expression, etc. It's really good, and they're quick reads, they're short, simple, really captivating, and just I highly suggest it. If you don't want to read a huge story about a genderqueer character, or if you really don't want to read a huge story at all, I guess. People aren't really into reading. Some people. But yeah, short stories are always a good way to go. So maybe even just find one online, try it, do some research. I highly, highly suggest it because they're really good. And that's about all I had found for genderqueer in the media. I'm sure there are hundreds more, and I'm sure there are quite a few other well-known ones that I just didn't mention. So I guess if you know of more, comment and tell us about them in the comments, and I'll post links to the people and books and video games I talked about in the description.